What is the maximum amount of money that you should spend on a new guitar, new or used? The answer is simpler than you think. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. I'm Utkarsh coming to you from Singapore. Now here's the thing with guitars. Any guitar beyond your first guitar is very simply put a want, not a need. Yes, I'm surrounded by many guitars, so I have many wants clearly. But leaving me aside, any guitar that you want to buy beyond the original instrument that you have is a want. Now you can justify it through saying this has a slightly different sound, blah blah blah. And I would say in the past it used to be true, even though you could really say there are just two different kind of guitar sounds, really majorly. And now today with modern tools you can manipulate anything to sound like anything. So it is clearly a want. So the industry is to an extent based on convincing you that some of your wants are needs. And again, I'm not dissing on the guitar industry. I'm clearly a supporter. And if you want more, get them, but don't convince yourself that you need them. It could be a want, it could be fine. You want more clothes, as an example. So, whenever you are confronted with a strong urge, what we call GAS, guitar acquisition syndrome, gear acquisition syndrome, it is important to remember or keep this context in mind that it's a want that's kind of being engineered to be turned into a need through all the ecosystems around you. So, what is the maximum amount of money that you should spend on a guitar? The answer is very simply put, the maximum amount of money that you can afford to. And when I say afford to, it's simple. If you need to take finance on it, you can't afford it. If this amount of money renders you unable to pay your rent, you can't afford it. If this amount of money is something that you would need to sell the guitar for at the first instance of some sort of emergency in your life, you can't afford it. That is the hard truth. Beyond your first guitar, anything else, it is very simply a superfluous want. It's a nice want, it makes you happy, it makes me happy. But you should absolutely not spend money on it if the conditions that I mentioned earlier are true, which is to say that you have to take financing for it, you eat into your emergency budget, so on and so forth. Your brain can convince you in many different ways. It can say, hey, this guitar is only available right now, it could go away. I've been looking for a Sunburst Telecaster, whatever it might be. I would be looking for this particular uh, this particular combination, so on and so forth. Sure, absolutely, that's fine. And sometimes you do need to make a move to get something that you really wanted. In that case, the rule that I use is very simply, have I wanted this thing for a significant amount of time? And I would typically say more than a year. And you'd be surprised how many things fall out of flavor once you give it a year, right? Something may look very attractive to you in the moment, but you may want to stop. I mean, you may not want it so much a few months later. If you've had that particular period and you have the ability to cover yourself off financially within a certain minimal time period, not a huge time period. Don't think that I'm going to make up that money over a year or whatever, and I'm going to, kind of somehow hang on the edge of financial destruction for a few months. If you think that, don't get it, even if it's only available right now. Why do I say this? What inspired me to make this video? I recently came across a post where somebody was selling a very nice guitar. I won't mention which brand, and I won't mention which whatever. And I've been coming across these posts more and more often these days. There's something, of course, about the state of the economy, so on and so forth, where people are like, "This is a nice guitar. This is my number one. I've had it for a very long time, but I need to sell it because I can't afford to pay the bills. I need it because there's an emergency. Blah blah blah," uh, which is very very saddening to see. Instrument is a very very personal thing. You form a bond with an instrument. I have certain instruments I would never want to sell, and to be in that position where you have to sell it uh, is not a good position. And what happens often with guitarists is that we have a tendency to acquire a lot of stuff that we don't need, a lot of equipment that we don't need. Some of us are minimal, but a lot of us are not. This is not my conjecture. This is basically how the guitar industry operates. How the guitar industry operates is that out of 10 people who try to play guitar, only one person continues. And then the guitar industry essentially spends all its time convincing this one person that they need more stuff. They need this new guitar, they need this particular pedal, this particular amp, so on and so forth. I have said in the past that I wish that the guitar industry would focus more on getting out of the 10 people more than one of them to convert. Getting 2 people to convert, 3 people to convert, 4 people, 10 people. But the guitar industry is kind of built to just focus on that one person who has converted to being a guitarist and get him or her to buy more. So because of this, a lot of us tend to acquire a lot of equipment. And what may happen often is that the best thing that you have is often the easiest to sell, right? And so then you are often put into a position where for financial survival, you may need to sell something that's a part of your life. So my recommendation to avoid this happening to you is to not get into the trap of acquiring different things just because it's the flavor of the month or so on and so forth, or marketing convinces you need it. And then you may have bought this guitar on finance, and then you may realize you want the next big thing that's coming out, or so on and so forth. Don't get into that trap. Have a financial layer around the musical instruments that you have and love, that you do not need to ideally get into the situation where you have to part with something that you like. So, which is why, to repeat myself one more time, the most expensive guitar that you can afford is the one where you don't need to finance it, where you don't need to dip into your emergency fund, where you do not need to put yourself in a strained financial position. You do not need to pre-use your rent money or pre-use that bonus that you're expecting to get. No. Have that fiscal discipline, so to speak, and it'll do you wonders. All right, folks, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.